must all be exhausted, and it's like mentally very exhausting as well. Hey.
Yeah, my brain feels like any more input and it's about to explode. So I'm glad that we're through with the anatomy and have a bit more like fluffy pieces like adjustments and social media, you know.
I so agree, Caro. My brain is also feeling like it's exploding.
Well, today's going to be a very casual chat around adjustments and your opinions around adjustments. So we can all just share and just have a good chat about how we feel about adjusting, being adjusted, giving adjustments, so we can share different points of views. So we're just going to open it up as an open discussion today. So you all did that little questionnaire where it kind of just prompted a few ideas for us to discuss, right? So first of all, by raising your hands, as from a student point of view, who likes getting hands on adjusted?
Yeah. I find that one funny. You saw in my little note, Laura, I like before, I was like, adjust me. It's cool. I'm ready to learn. Tell me what I'm doing wrong. Now that we've done this course, I'm like, hey, nobody knows what they're doing, actually. Let me just adjust myself. It's fine.
That's a great point you bring up, Claire. It's like trusting that another person knows what they're doing when adjusting your body. It's quite a big thing, right? Janine, you have a question?
It's such a difficult one because I have been in big classes where I've been adjusted, and some of the adjustments have been really nice and some have been really awful, where I really struggle with extension of my neck and somebody comes and pulls at your neck or tries to get you into a deeper position, and it's really awful. So it's difficult. I think if you know the person and you're in a small individual class where you can talk about it, then it's nice. But just randomly, when you've got your eyes closed or when you're in Warrior 2 or 3 and somebody comes and puts their hands on you, I don't like that.
Yeah.
And it happens a lot. That random just touching you happens. It's fine in Shavasana if someone comes and moves your neck and you don't know, or rubs your feet. That is amazing because I love that kind of physical touch. But don't come and like move my arm when I'm trying to balance, and don't tell me you're doing it.
Yeah. It's a big one. Cara, and then we'll come to you, Eva.
Yeah, I think it's a question that's not easy to answer for me because first off, it depends on what kind of adjustment. So, and has there been consent, and who's the teacher as well? For example, I had a horrible situation with a male teacher who has not established consent with anyone, and who then in Parshva Konasana, it felt like he was creeping up behind me. So I had no idea that he was there. And then he just took my upper body very harshly and pulled me more into this opening. And I was like, first of like startled, like there is some person behind me. And then what are you doing? And how tough are you doing it? And so I find that is like very, it's just entering my private space unwantedly. And then I think it also depends who is that person, even if I'm deciding, am I going to give consent or not? For example, in Berlin, we have so many yoga teachers, like so many, and they're becoming more and more by the day. And there's this one collective, they do a lot of yoga in the park, and then they have like new teacher immersions on Saturdays. And every time when I check who is that new teacher, it's like these like mid-20-year-old people who just came back from their 4 weeks in Goa where they did the 200 hours, and now they're like, yay, now I'm a yoga teacher. And I've been doing yoga for 1.5 years and it changed my life. And so I would rather not give consent to a teacher like this, giving me physical adjustments. Because it's this trust issue. If it's like an established teacher that I already know better and where I feel like, yeah, there's just a higher base for trust, then I might say, okay, it's okay to give adjustments. But yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. There's so many levels to this, right? So this is why it's so nice to just talk amongst each other and hear all of it. Eva, and then Anya will come to you, and then Vidette or Taryn, was your hand up? Vidette, cool. So Eva?
Yes, for me it's like for Caro. First of all, would have to be defined what an adjustment is, because there are so many kinds of adjustments. So if it is an adjustment which aims to soothe me, or to, like Janine said, just massage me or whatever, and there is consent, I tend to like those. But on the other hand, if the intention is to bring me deeper into a pose, then I don't like it, because I had really bad experiences with that. And the question always is, what is the goal of the teacher by doing it? Does he want me to bring into the ideal shape that, you know, you can see in the textbook, or does he want me to find, or help me find, what I could explore in my own body? And there's a big difference. So if a teacher would assist me and give me a little bit of more safety, maybe that I can lean on him or whatever, to explore a little bit more what my body is capable of, I am all for it. But if it's the teacher who tries to force my body into a position that I don't, and that clearly goes with what Caro says, there has to be a lot of experience that the teacher has to have. And also he would have to know my body, not only just I come in and even if it's, I have been really badly adjusted by one of the most famous German yoga teachers once. He didn't know me, and he just opened me in a way that it was just not possible for me, and it was really bad. So even experience some things you cannot see from the outside. And what you can't see from the outside, you either have to know the student and see how the student is moving and see how the movement develops. So even then, experience by just saying, oh, wow, I taught yoga for 10 years and I know all about anatomy, then you should probably not adjust things that you don't know about. So it's like, do I like yoga? What kind of yoga do I like? You know, I personally don't like the hot 26. But other people do, and it's still yoga, but I would still say I like yoga. So it's like there has to be a lot of information and definition going in for me.
I totally agree, because it depends on the person, the teacher, the pose, the reason. There's so many levels to an adjustment, right? Anya? And then we'll do for dose.
Eva, I completely agree with you. And then going back to what Caro was saying about, you know, a newly qualified or maybe an inexperienced teacher in relation to adjustments and things, I think a lot of students go into classes and expect their teachers to know what they're doing. So if there's, you know, if there's adjustments expected, they tend to expect the teacher to know what they're doing. You know what I mean? They trust the teacher. And that's what they sign up for.
Yeah. People put a lot of trust in their yoga teacher, expecting you to know what you're doing, you know. They don't even doubt that you don't know. For date, for dose, and then we'll come to you, Tegan.
Yeah, you know, slightly off a teacher doing adjustments. We've got a studio where, we in favor. I'm not a fan of. It depends how you're feeling on the day and who you're going to be partnered up with. And where the students end up having to do the adjustments. I mean, Will is a common one with the belt, and you know, you can see the nervousness in the student, and then you're putting your hands into somebody who's clueless, and it puts me off. I mean, I often don't go to the classes because you're never told when it's going to be a paired class, so you just don't go in the end. And it's very off-putting. I mean, my physio used Mars, a guy, and he was one of my first. I never went to him for years, and he is brilliant. Now, I wish I'd gone earlier, but because we had been partnered up, it was the most uncomfortable. And it was literally, I think he could have had 3 years of business, which I just didn't go to. It was just so uncomfortable and awkward, and we don't know what we're doing. So, yeah.
Who likes surprise partner work? Who enjoys partner work? Hands up. Most of sometimes I think when you know that you're coming into a acro class or you're doing a partner contact and you signed up for that, all good. But when it's brought on you as a surprise, I think we're all like, for dose. Good point, Vidette.
No, I just wanted to present a bit of like a counter view. I was thinking maybe Vidette was going to say it, but like Vidette, where we trained at the Shala on our 200 hour, I think that the touch that is used there can sometimes be gratuitous in that, you know, sometimes the teacher will just touch you because I don't know why, but you become used to it.
Yes.
And I mean, maybe some people don't. And then you almost expect it. And then when they don't touch you, then you're like, oh, why didn't they touch me today? But it is, I think for the way that it was used there, it's more just like to make a connection, which is what I wrote in what I sent you, Laura. Like,
Yes.
it's just about, I mean, okay, now obviously you can't do things like that, but it's like you would give someone a hug or shake their hand or, you know, whatever this is called, fist bump. And it's that kind of thing, like trying to establish relationships and building and growing connection. And I'll just tell you my experience of what I found when I went to a new place where I had never taught before and knew nobody, which was in the UK. And I taught at a studio there. And I think maybe the first week I explained, because I eventually got tired of like, hi, I'm Firdous, I'm here studying. You know, it was like such a long story. I eventually just stopped telling it. But maybe the first week I said, look, this is how I'm trained. And my training involves a fair amount of adjusting. If everybody's okay with that, let me know. And then I just got bored of saying it and I just stopped. And I think people just knew that that was the class they were coming to. And you can tell, right? Like when you're going close to somebody and you're about to, I don't know, tap their shoulder, you can tell if they're like, don't tap my shoulder. And then it's about reading the room, right? And also the students who you adjust a lot, you can tell they want you to come and, I don't know, pat their back or whatever. So I think it's quite intuition based some of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of students enjoy hands-on adjustments. It's so tricky to read who does and who doesn't, and you know, all the relevant things involved. Totally. Tegan, I think you were next, and then Cara.
Hi.
Hi.
So I'm just driving. So I come from that Jivamukti background with lots and lots of adjustments. And so this year and even last year, you know, we started having more proper conversations around adjustments and touch. And so from last year, what I started doing to really help is I get my students in down dog and I say in down dog, lift a leg if you don't want to be adjusted. And I find it super, super helpful because you don't have to like, you know, no one has to lift a hand. No one can really see who's lifted a leg. Everyone just moves on. And if there's one person, absolutely, and it's so chilled, it actually ends up not being a lot in the end. And I know what Cara is saying, Jivamukti teachers do grab you. But she is right. We do spend a lot of time getting experience and practicing. Not that it justifies it, because I do think there are teachers who don't know how to adjust. But I think asking permission is really important, especially now and especially in the current climate and with what's going on just with, you know, the inappropriate touch. And I think also permission because we don't know what people's bodies are going through. And I don't know everything. And I don't want to, even though I love adjustments, it is my jam. I also have to put myself aside and be like, cool, maybe it's not other people's jam. And that's so cool. But it's a good practice, I think. I think Lex actually taught me this, like what they do also is like they have a Shavasana, sorry if I'm wilding, they like have a Shavasana adjustment. So they'll like have someone put the hand up. And again, I think it's just really nice just to quietly get consent instead of like start of the class, everyone sitting, who doesn't want to be touched? Or, you know, then it's weird and, you know, but yeah, Jivamukti, I know what they've also done it overseas. I know the New York studio has since closed, but what they have started doing is also putting out consentment cards. So you can grab a card at the front desk and put it at the top of your mat and say, I do want to be touched, or turn it around and it says, no thanks. So I think consent is really important, actually.
That's a great point, Tegan. And I think it's quite an awkward thing to find what works to allow people that opportunity to say no or to say yes. And I think that's going to be a big discussion. Cara, you're next. And then Lauren, you had your hand up, and then Firdous.
Yeah, I also wanted to add that with touch, you also have to keep in mind things like trauma, and that not every person who has experienced trauma is going to be in a specific trauma yoga class. And also trauma comes in very different forms. So yeah, you can really do damage by touching someone without announcing it and without asking whether it's okay for them.
That's a huge topic, absolutely. How do we know? And are those people comfortable saying that they're not okay with being touched? I think it's quite an awkward thing to be able to say no. When I've been faced in that situation and the teacher's right there going, can I adjust? I feel a bit like to say no. You know what I mean? Even though I really don't like adjusting. I don't like being adjusted. I have many things going on in my body and I'm trying to contain it all the time. And I'm very scared if someone comes and tries to adjust me because I'm sitting with a lot of different bits of injury that I'm trying to maintain. And it's terrifying when someone tries to stretch me deeper. It's fine if someone's a spotter for handstands. Awesome. Love it. But if you're trying to push me down in Paschimottanasana, like I'm petrified. Scary stuff. Lauren?
Yes, I agree. I think for those you were saying about you can feel the energy or read the energy of a person, but I normally go through the sort of, not rules, but like the first sort of few classes when a student comes that I don't really know them, I'll sort of get them introduced to my energy at the end with Shavasana with a little nice smelly and a tiny little touch. But then within my class with the students that I'm used to, I sort of go with a verbal cue, a finger cue, and then if they feel sort of comfortable and I know them, then I'll do like a nice, but I do find with the more experienced, I mean, when you get to know your students, with the more experienced ones, they actually, if you don't touch them, they're like, why am I coming to your class? I can be doing something online. So it really depends on the person. And I think, I mean, obviously not everyone is able to sort of read energy and stuff, but I do feel like you can sort of see, especially with a new person, I mean, if you can see that they really don't have the connection, you're saying move their shoulder and you can see that they don't actually know where their shoulder is or how to move it, to just sort of place the finger and then just say, you know, do you mind if I just touch you? And they, you know, often people will be like, and you don't even need to answer and you can just back away. Or some people are like, oh, yes, please. So I think you can literally read, you know, if you do come close to people, people literally like, oh, get out of my space.
For Dose, and then we'll come to you, Claire.
Yeah, I just wanted to say two things. The one is that I remember when we were teaching, like Tegan mentioned the consent discs or cards or whatever. And also what we would often say, this was more in like the refugee context, was you could change your mind. So if you started the class and you wanted no adjustments, but then you decided, oh, actually now I feel like it, you could flip it the other way, and then you could change your mind again. And you could, you could change your mind as many times as you wanted during the class, depending on what you were feeling like in a particular pose. But then the other thing I thought I'd just point out, which I think I also mentioned to you, Laura, in the written thing, was about like, not necessarily teaching couples, but like gender relationships. So I remember like one of the things being told, like if you're teaching a couple, don't adjust the man if you're a woman teacher, and adjust the wife a lot, so that like they get comfortable with the dynamics of that. That was something Vedette might remember from our 200 hour. But like that's also a bit unusual because you know you're playing a lot of dynamics with different across, and it could be the same if you're a male teacher adjusting female students. And I mean, we know what's happened with certain gurus and the kind of consent issues around that. So there's a lot of things to consider, right? Because when does it become like sexual harassment, basically?
There's so much to consider. It's huge. Adjustments is like, it's a massive topic. And I don't know if we're going to leave with any answers, but it's worthwhile hearing. And I think male teachers, Ashton, I think it's very difficult for you guys to, I'm sure you don't want to touch anyone because it's just such a big topic in yoga and everybody is so like onto male teachers. Ashton, maybe you want to jump in before we come to Claire, before we go further.
Sure thing, just to provide the perspective my gender allows for in this situation. I completely agree with you, Laura, and I have tended, especially now in the current climate, to err on the side of caution. But in general, I think I even wrote in my response to you that I prefer to give students the chance to figure things out for themselves within the body, saving the physical adjustment as a last resort if we really can't get the breakthrough any other way, over and above asking consent for each individual touch. That's my general approach to the entire thing, but it's a very piece of murky territory at the moment for male teachers especially.
Yeah. I think it's really true. And even I feel that way. I'm not one to jump in and give hands-on adjustments. I'm going to verbally try and cue it as much as I can to get them to find it within themselves, because we want to create that body awareness so that they know what they're doing. I might stand next to them and demonstrate, oh, don't do this with your shoulder, do that, so that they can visually kind of see it. Or another interesting thing is put your hand on your shoulder. Can you feel when you're doing like this? Get them to adjust themselves. There's also sometimes an interesting take. They can feel on themselves what you would adjust. Claire? Thanks, Ashton.
Now I've got a few points, because I was going to say, I don't know about everyone else here, but it's also funny how women tend to not be fazed by other women touching them. The moment it's a man, you're like, hey, what's happening? Which is an interesting aspect as well. Then I wanted to tap on what Tegan touched on, I think it was. So, and obviously Firdaus also just spoke about it. The card is actually a fantastic idea, because I was going to say that's another thing, like certain things that you're adjusted in, excuse me, it's like all good in the hood. Like sometimes the teacher comes in and adjusts you and you're like, oh, whoa, that's epic. Other times, like you could be in a balance and then the teacher wants to come and move you around. You're like, dude, I just got stable. What are you doing? So having that choice, because it's like, I don't mind being adjusted, but not now. No, don't do it now. You need to be able to say, okay, this one's good, this one's not so good. And then I was going to literally go on your idea. But the whole point is, you know, in yoga, you're wanting to bring awareness into somebody's body. If I come and touch you, you're not in your body anymore. You're aware of me touching your body. So it's better to actually, like if you can verbally cue somebody and get them there, that's way better than actually having to physically touch them. Although having said that, that's why it's like, it's such a binary topic, because sometimes people are so unaware of their bodies. I noticed we did some stuff where literally my teacher's hand would like either touch you just gently, or just you would feel her just behind your body, but it brought the awareness there that allowed you to get into the pose better. So yeah. It's a really difficult topic, really.
There's so much to it. Who was next? Who else had their hand up? Okie dokie. So Eva, you want to add, and then we'll talk a little bit more, you as a teacher going forwards about adjustments. Eva, you go first.
I would actually chime in with you on the self-adjustment part, because it's on one part, you bring awareness, the same awareness that Claire is talking about, but maybe you can't do it on your backside. But still, if you, like we talked about with the homunculus and things like that, even the touch sometimes gives you more proprioception, which means where is my body in space, but it doesn't have to be someone else who is touching you there. It can be yourself, like putting your thumbs on your hip bones to see if they are lifting up or if they are not, or just even if you're doing a stretch to just not go over. Yeah. But just slightly slide here and then really feel your whole body and what is happening there, to just, yeah, to just give tactile feedback on what you're doing. And that is an adjustment on itself.
Absolutely, because touch brings awareness to that particular area of the body or muscle or activation. One I use a lot with the 200 hours, and it's been quite useful now since online life, is in Utthita Trikonasana. I'm always so pedantic about poses when I'm teaching them, that I get them to bring their hands into their lower ribs and feel, are you shortening your bottom rib cage, or can you lengthen your bottom rib cage? And all of them are actually feeling, what am I actually doing with my ribs? So then they can slide their ribs a little bit longer, and then feel how you can rotate your ribs up towards the ceiling and towards the floor. And we use that quite a lot now that they can do it online, seeing as there's no teachers there, and feel the instruction as well as hearing the cue. So I find that's quite interesting. Of course, some things work better than others, but we have a lot of tools to work with. Jumping into hands-on adjust doesn't need to be a go-to. But it depends. Maybe you like teaching that way. There's a lot of dynamics. Caro?
Yeah, also a thing, I wrote it also in the questionnaire. I feel like also we need to take into account, or at least for me, that there is adjustments for the asana practice, and then shavasana is a completely different part. And I feel like if if we have a student that says, yes, please physically adjust me, whatever, we should not automatically assume that this person also wants to be touched in the beginning or during Shavasana, because in Berlin, it's fairly common that quite a few teachers would have people lie down in Shavasana and then they rub their hands with some tangerine oil and give you a nice neck massage, and I hate it. I absolutely do not like strangers' oily hands who have touched 20 different scalps before to rub me and then grease up my freshly washed hair. I do not like it.
I loved so much when I read that comment, Cara. It was great.
So I feel if you establish consent and you're planning on giving, like, because many people love these massages, you know, and they love Shavasana touch and whatever, and rightly so. But yeah, don't forget to establish that consent then again at that point, because yeah, it might vary, like, yeah.
Absolutely. And I think it's so true because Shavasana adjustments are very different. Before we come to you, Lauren, who enjoys Shavasana adjustments? Yeah, pretty much we're split. Interesting, hey? Lauren?
So I find also some people, so people generally come to me because I'm a massage therapist. So people come to my classes because I do yin with a lot of sort of massage and touching, which has been very difficult obviously now. But people actually come to me for that because I include massage in my things. But obviously I have a lot of experience with that and feeling energy and that kind of thing. But I also found that sometimes people don't, so obviously teachers, we have a much more awareness of our body and what we need and what we feel and all that kind of stuff. But I have had lots of people that have come to me, and in the beginning I always say, like, how do you feel about touch? You know, when I'm introduced to new students or whatever, and they're like, no, I hate touch. Like, don't come near me. Like, just don't even, like, you know what I mean? Like, they don't like touch. Actually, one of my best friends is one of my students that she came to me at first and she was like, don't touch me. Do not touch me. If you touch, don't come near me. Anyway, and the one day I could see that she was having a bad day, and I could, you know, like I can sort of see if people can go a little bit further. It doesn't matter the shape, but I can see if they're kind of holding, because sometimes if you engage in your core, you're not breathing properly, you can see that you're kind of holding yourself there instead of just relaxing down, and sometimes a little bit of touch helps us. Anyway, so I've had a few cases like my best friend where I've done that, and then afterwards they're like, oh my God, I love touch. It's so different to what they expect, I think. But again, I think it is the teacher, because some teachers come to you and they're like, rip your shoulder up, or, you know, and again, it comes to that verbal cue, little bit of a touch, and then something that's more juicy. So yeah, it's really interesting because again, and it's not always just the touch for the position. It's sometimes a touch as like a gentle gesture of like connectivity, or if you can see someone's really upset, they don't really want you to come and touch you, but a little, you know, put them in child's pose and put your hand on their back. So again, it goes back to that place where there's so many different kinds of adjustments and touches and that kind of thing. So yeah, just an interesting story about the kind of what people think they need, and then showing them what it is possible through that is quite interesting.
Absolutely, Lauren. Thanks for sharing that. And I think it's so great when you teach your friends, because they're always brutally honest with you. No matter how they feel about stuff.
Yeah.
So as a teacher, do you use hands-on adjustments a lot? Hands up, just so we can kind of gauge. Yeah. Oh, so this is always the thing. A lot of us enjoy hands-on adjustments being done, you know, to you in a class. But when it comes to teaching, we're like, oh, I don't know. I don't want to touch anyone. And why, let's hear from a different side, why would you feel resistance towards adjusting a person? Is it because you feel that maybe you don't fully understand the anatomy of the pose? Is that one reason why you wouldn't adjust? So Claire, Eva, then back to Lauren, and then Karen.
Okay, so I'm twofold on this one, because I feel like aerial, sometimes you're just holding your students while they're like doing weird things. So like adjustments happen in there, like there's a whole lot of touching in there. But in the Hatsa side of things, and this has just been from my own personal experiences, I've noticed how, you know, you start off maybe 2-3 years ago, you're feeling a pose in a certain way, and the teachers are telling you, do this, do that, feel this, and you're like, okay. And then as you're progressing with your practice, like a year later, you're like, oh, I've got it. I feel it in my body. But you can't have that if somebody has put you into it, if that makes sense. So it's so much more fun having that journey in your own self. And that's why I'd actually rather not adjust people, because everybody's, Kara actually put it in the chat, like, is that their version of the pose right now? It could be, like, we're deciding, okay, you should look this way, but you could be tight in weird places, your one bone could be at a weird angle, like, we don't know. But let the student feel where they're at, and maybe they progress one day, maybe they don't. And maybe their version of that pose is epic for them. If they're happy, leave them alone. I don't know, that's my thinking.
Yeah, great, Claire. Thank you. Eva?
Yeah, very, very beautifully said, Claire. I totally agree, because it's really what do I want to go to? What do I want to put them in the pose like I want them to be, or is it more important that they feel the pose it presents to them? Maybe I would encourage them to try out different, like Laura said, with maybe put your hands here and try what happens if you bring your ribs a little bit forward, so that they can make their own experience, but in the end decide where they stop and where they go further. And maybe they go on like a week later or whatever, maybe at home, or I don't know. So and I think that the discrepancy between people wanting to be adjusted and teachers not wanting to adjust is because it's a completely different perspective. If you, I think that if you ask a lot of, like, people trust in teachers and they don't know what can go wrong, and maybe those people who don't know what can go wrong and what has gone wrong in a lot of adjustments, they will just have a picture of adjusting in their mind. They connect it with what they also believe in, but wow, I will do the ideal alignment, and yes, please do that so that I can get it finally. Well, they won't get it, but that is probably why they say, yes, please do it so that I can finally do the pose. Whereas if you ask people who have been adjusted badly, or maybe even like in that survey we got sent, it was only people who practice yoga regularly. Those people who, like Vidette said, came once and never came back 3 years afterwards because it was so putting them off, they don't get a word in that. So that would completely tip the scales maybe to the other direction. So I think, and then like Lauren said, there are so many different versions of adjustments that I could not even, and a lot of us told the same answer. We can't answer the question unless we know which adjustment by whom in which pose.
Exactly. And maybe we can take some examples and discuss it a little bit more if you want. Who is next? Lauren.
So I just wanted to, so your question was like, why don't teachers some don't adjust? And in my experience of working with new teachers is that they actually are afraid to touch people because it's not a normal thing. So obviously, and I only learned this when I started my school, but I've obviously massaged people since I was like in my early 20s. And so I'm an extremely tactile person. So like, I'll give you a big hug, or when I'm talking to you, I'll touch you on your shoulder. And again, my friend that I'll come to, she was literally like, I can't be your friend if you keep on hugging me and touching me. But like, for me, it's super natural. Like, I'll just come and touch you. And if you touch me or have, like, it's completely like, I don't even notice. Like, if you were standing in front of me naked, I wouldn't even notice, just because I'm so used to being in people's spaces and touching them. But normal people, or not, sorry, that's a terrible thing. Like, people that are not used to touching other people or people touching them, it's not actually something that's comfortable at all. Like, they're not used to having a stranger in their space, like more than a normal distance. So I think it's just that like unknown territory of coming into people's space and actually touching people, unless I'm like overboard. I literally have tactile person and massage therapist, and so I'm literally on like the other spectrum of this whole and people that aren't like massage therapists or body workers or anything, to be in people's space and touch them, they find it extremely uncomfortable, and they don't actually even know how to navigate around a person's body, because there's certain ways to touch, like don't be in their face, come from the other side, and there's a whole lot of ways to think about it. But yeah, so my experience is just people just are not familiar with being in other people's auras and spaces. So yeah,
Totally.
I think it's more fear-based then.
Valid point. Thanks, Lauren. Who was after Lauren? Yeah. So what poses do you think it's useful giving hands-on adjustments? Like, when are hands-on adjustments really helpful? What type of poses do you feel you benefit most as a student, as also giving as a teacher's perspective? Eva?
As I said, I'm not doing a lot of hands-on adjustments, but if I do, it's mostly for tactile feedback, and that is on the back part of the body. Because like if I want to make people aware of how their shoulder blades move, for example, and you could put them in front of the mirror, and then but they still would have to like turn their head a lot. So just to lightly touch where, say, the medial border of the shoulder blade is, so that they can feel the retraction or whatever elevation, things like that are fine for me, and I like to be adjusted that way as well. And it doesn't even have to be, I don't have a trust issue with that, so it can nearly be anyone. And I must say, hearing Lauren talk, I would probably really love to be in a class with her, because but that's exactly this thing. If you have someone who has been touching people for like a decade, then it's different, and they are trained in that. And I have been in so many teacher trainings already that I have to say that I don't trust about 3/4 of like all those yoga teachers and most of them are 200-hour yoga teachers. And the problem is that those who are advanced, they know that they don't know everything, and they are not the ones, sometimes out of fear of doing the wrong thing, they are not adjusting. And those who are just done that thing and just like Carol said, yeah, I was 4 weeks in Goa and now I'm a yoga teacher and I'm gonna show you, they just don't know what can happen. They just don't have any experience with other people's bodies. But that light touch on, say, my shoulder blades or something, I trust everyone with.
Yeah.
That
so
is fine.
To bring awareness is helpful. Thanks, Eva.
But that's not on the front side.
Not on the front.
Yeah.
It also depends where you're bringing that awareness to, hey?
Yes.
Firdaus?
I think when you ask like which poses are good for adjustments, definitely like I don't use the word catching, but catching somebody's legs in an inversion. I mean, you obviously have to know what you're doing, and they have to trust you, and you have to be strong, and they have to have shoulder strength. Okay, so there's all the conditions, but definitely, I mean, that's what I benefit from, is somebody catching me. And also like something like wheel pose, you know, letting somebody push on your, what do you call this, ankle. I haven't seen my ankles for a long time because I can't even bend this far forward. Like just to give them the feeling of like what they need to be doing. So those types of poses I think can be helpful.
I totally agree, Firdaus, because it's so nice when someone has developed strength and maybe they've been doing inversions at the wall. Now you bring them away from the wall, so they're terrified. But having you stand there, whether you're touching or not touching, is so helpful. And I think that's when it really helps a lot from a student perspective. And I also love the adjustment in full wheel where you hold the ankles. Have you guys experienced that? So it's really lovely because it's taken out that wrist extension out of the pose. And for those with more restricted shoulder flexion, of course, the wrists feel it the most, right? So by allowing them to hold your ankles, you can just take that out of the equation and they can find a version of the pose, even if they're like pushing away from your feet and a very long wheel, they can still get up in the pose and they're in full wheel. And that is so rewarding. And you as a teacher are supporting them a little bit from behind as well, which is also great. So I also love those. Lauren.
So one of my students' favorite is, obviously depending on the students, obviously wouldn't do it with someone that really tight hips or knee issues or ankle issues, but in extended child's pose, people love that. And then I also found, because people, especially when they're folding forward, they don't, unless you like, I mean, all of us will probably know, but to bring your weight forward and lifting your sit bones and all that kind of stuff. But if you kind of just give them a little pull through their legs or a little like push forward, those adjustments, I mean, I've had people come up and be like, oh my God, I got like so much deeper. And that's, I feel like it's little tiny adjustments where it's a verbal cue that can change your whole pose, posture, awareness. So yeah, those two are two of my favorites.
Yeah. Extended child's pose is a delicious adjustment. Regarding they don't have any knee stuff and don't, and are comfortable with it. It is a goodie on the delicious spectrum of things. When else do you feel that hands-on adjustments are really helpful? So you can see a lot of it we can do verbally. For Dose, you have, I'm loving the chat is hilarious at the moment. Sorry.
So just like, I'll just give you my example because I've got a habit of doing this a lot, like putting my shoulders up. So like if there's something habitual, which your student does, so like I would have teachers that don't even have to look at me and they'll just say, take your shoulders down. So something like that, like where there's a habitual thing that a student is doing and you want to maybe like reprogram aspects of their, I don't know, conditioning, and then you would maybe be helped. It doesn't have to be physical. It can also just be a verbal adjustment.
Yeah. So bring awareness to relaxing the shoulders down. Yeah. So and Cara, you want to add?
Yeah, I think it's just very difficult to say like in this pose it would be good and this adjustment is great because it all depends so much on the individual. I think like the way I would do it, or I try to do it, is just keep an open eye out for what are people doing? What do they look like? Do they look like, like Firdaus said, I used to do that a lot too, that kind of like cramping up here or holding. Parasitic tension is a term that I learned from Eva. So holding in some place where they don't need to hold, and maybe you can help them to soften in that area, or maybe they're really shaking and struggling in a pose and you can help them to find a milder variation or whatever. But it really depends because not everybody is going to need the same things. Not everybody is going to like the same things. And yeah, I think it's kind of a bit of a tiptoe walk with lots of trial and error as well.
Totally. And when do we gain experience of adjusting if we're not adjusting? Then how do we ever learn as well? It's such a tricky thing. Taryn?
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in there and also say it is such a personal thing, and especially like chatting about everyone, how different everyone is and things like that. But in terms of like my training, it was kind of like an expectation that you will adjust and you will know every pose's adjustment. So every pose had an adjustment, and it was like, I mean, you would do a lot of adjustments in a class. That was part of you being a teacher. So you don't practice at the front of the class, you walk around and you adjust. So that was like how I, expected to teach my class, and then what was, what I would expect in a class. And then like it's so different now because then if you're getting taught by someone like in your 200 and stuff, and you're going to that studio, you're just surrounded by whatever that norm is. So that's kind of what you get used to. So I think it's so good to like try different classes, go to different places, see what other people are like, because like you say now, and to have these kind of discussions, because you can't just then now expect that everyone is used to getting touched and wants to get touched and those types of things. But I mean, on the other side of the coin, it's also kind of like, you know, we keep saying that teachers are going more and more onto the like, let's say the side of precaution, where they aren't teaching things anymore because they're just saying, you know, if you're comfortable with this, go into a wheel. If not, stay where you are. Like Catherine always says, like avoiding the actual teaching part. And I think it's also then easier to be like, well, I'm not going to touch anyone. I'm not going to help you. I'm not going to do anything. You just do that, you know, warrior 2, which I can see is completely wrong. And I'm going to keep saying, move your leg. But if you don't listen, I'm not going to do anything. Could also be maybe taken as, you know, just like erring on the side of caution of not going to do too much teaching. You know, just
good point, Taryn. Very good point. Yeah. Anyone else want to add to that? Eva?
That just came to my mind when Taryn talked about this completely wrong warrior 2. Like, yes, definitely you want to change something if people really don't get it. And what I just now thought of, sometimes it's just good not to touch, or sometimes it really works to provide external cues. If you just have a hand like somewhere where you want them to move towards, they don't have to touch you, but they see where you would like them to go, because sometimes they don't have the awareness of what that is. If you say towards the front of the mat, they are sometimes so aware, up, down, left, right. So if you really provide something to my hand, and there is only one hand in, like, and then that helps them sometimes as well to have some external directional cues where they can work towards too.
Yeah, very helpful. So you can say, bring your knee towards my hand. Absolutely. Firdaus?
I just want to add another thought, which is like, I think Taryn mentioned it, and so did Claire, about like the teacher being told like you shouldn't maybe stand at the front and just demo, you should walk around, or some, especially now with the online stuff where people are like, all they can do is I mean, what can you do? You can't walk around your screen, right? So you're pretty much demonstrating a lot of the time. And I mean, number one is maybe getting tired of talking and demonstrating, but also then people are constantly like, oh, I shouldn't have done that, like turning to look at you. So like yesterday, for example, I couldn't really move, but I had to teach a class. So I explained to them at the beginning that like, listen, I can't really do anything. So I'm just going to say to you, like, fold forward, then I'll do this, and you will fold all the way to the floor kind of thing. And I found it was actually much better, maybe not much better, but it was different in the sense that I was looking at them and talking, and they were not looking at me because I couldn't do anything really. And it was actually a much better experience from a less distraction. And I guess the point I'm trying to make is I also think sometimes the teachers like either like a model or just being a little bit show-offy, like, well, now let's do the blah, 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 blah. And then they put themselves into something and you're like, whoa, now that's just showing off kind of thing. So it's an interesting balance between like, should you adjust? Should you be a model? Should you be more talking through your teaching? And I think, I don't know, that's just my final thought.
I think that's a great thought, Firdaus. And I think when we are, and I'm many times been not able to move when teaching classes, and it's been the biggest lessons, and I've learned the most out of those times, because you can't demonstrate. You can't just, even we tend to put ourselves in the pose even though it's not really necessary. They kind of know how to forward fold. You don't need a forward fold with them. And it really teaches you to refine the words that you're using. And even if someone doesn't understand elongate your spine, you find different ways to say what you mean. And I think I think that's really, we've got so much power in the words that we use to execute what we want from the pose. And people hear and understand things differently as well. Yeah, the language is just so powerful. And I think that's something we can focus on more so than jumping into quickly fix, is challenge yourself to find the words that help them process that information, find it in their bodies, and then do the adjustment themselves. Is also very interesting. Hey, there's a whole nother topic, verbal adjusting, cueing. We can talk forever. Who had their hand up? Thanks for those. No? Okay, so just to go on the other side of the spectrum about poses, what poses do you feel that you shouldn't adjust in? Vedette, and then Lauren, and then Tegan.
Sorry, I got my daughter screaming in the background. You know, it's funny, I had an adjustment done to me just before my 200 hour by a really well-trained Iyengar teacher too. And it was just completely a basic seated twist. And she just pushed further, and ever since, at night, I still cannot sleep on the shoulder. It's just aggravated. And it was something so simple, and she was just adamant that you could go further to bind. And that was it. And yeah, it's been 3 years, it's never gone. I've learned to deal with it. And it was nothing major. And I mean, yeah, she's brilliant. She's really good, but that was it just went too far. My body wasn't ready to go that far, yeah.
And this is exactly what we're all scared about, hey, is pushing too far. Yeah, hectic.
And it was simple. It was just a heated twist. There was nothing.
And what is the intention? And I think that what I would like to kind of, when we get there, almost, what is our mantra when it comes to adjustment? What is your intention? Is it to create a better look in the pose? Is it help to someone get deeper in the pose? Question why you're trying to get them deeper into the pose. You almost have to develop a little mantra for yourself to question why you're putting your hands on and pushing them further into a twist. Is it that important that you needed to twist that much more? Oh, shame, Vedette. Horrible. Lauren, and then Tegan.
I actually can't remember what I was going to say, but
we were asking what poses do you feel you shouldn't adjust in?
Yeah, I had two poses in mind, but I don't know. But anyway, I wouldn't adjust to anyone that feels like they're struggling. So if they already can't breathe, or you can see that they are uncomfortable, do not go there.
Yeah.
I think only adjust people that look super comfortable and like are really looking at ease. And
then we also question then, why are we adjusting the people that are comfortable and happy? It's tricky, right? Tegan?
So I have a student who went to a really great studio in the UK, in London, in Dava, and it was a slightly heated class, and she was doing Paschimottanasana, so seated forward fold, and she got, like she said, it was such a small adjustment, popped a hamstring. So in class, heard her pop, and she said it wasn't even a big adjustment. She knows it was small, and I adjust her. She's my private. She does all my Jivamukti classes. And so I would say poses that are the most dangerous. I was actually going to say Vedette, twists. I always, Em and I have fat chats about twists, especially revolve crescent lunge. Yeah. Twists are super, I think, dangerous, and forward folds, because you know where people adjust incorrectly in forward folds is they press the spine, right? They push down, which is not what you want to do. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's the thing is some people aren't learning how to adjust correctly, and then these injuries are happening. So I think not enough time maybe is spent on adjustments before learning how to do them correctly.
Totally.
But forward folds are very dangerous.
Totally agree. I actually get goosebumps when you talk about Paschimottanasana adjustments. It's such a fear for me. Totally.
I feel so bad for my client, because this has actually happened to her. So she obviously popped a hamstring, but before this, she was in the same pose, another teacher, same thing, but instead of hurting her hamstring, it hurt her back. Because again, they just push down. They don't do anything. They just think, okay, forward fold, down. And that's not what you're trying to do. You're trying to lengthen through the spine. There's lots of things. And like we've been saying, an adjustment can be literally just, I like to lift people up on the sides of their ribs. That's not even folding forward. It's just length, you know? So, yeah.
Tegan, does she have tight hamstrings or long hamstrings?
Long.
So this is always the thing that I find as well. Sometimes the flexible people get pushed further. So she probably already folds in half. And then someone feels that they're going to take them even further than that. Maybe, is that it, Tegan?
I think that's what happened exactly.
Absolutely. And then it's just like,
I'm
why
getting
are you pushing someone any further? If they're already in forward fold Paschimottanasana just fine, why do you feel that they need more? And that's been my experience a lot of the time in Paschimottanasana. I used to fold flat. And then people would come and push or lie on me or like do horrendous things to the point that I don't do Paschimottanasana because my pelvis is so wrecked from forward bends and dance stuff. But it's a dodgy pose. And if someone's flexible already, why push them more? Scary stuff. Cara, and then Claire, and then Lauren. Oh, Cara's good. Claire?
So again, I was going to say twists, leave the twists alone. And then I've been adjusted in wheel where the teacher grabbed my shoulders to pull me back. It was fudging sore. Like, I don't know, it keeps on coming back to I'm really reticent to adjust because you really don't know what is happening in individual bodies. And the same with the hamstrings. I would also be so reticent. I'm somebody who has tight hamstrings, but I also, like my one hamstring, like arbitrarily likes to niggle halfway down the hamstring. Who knows why? You don't know whether the person you're dealing with has the same sort of thing, or it's better, I think, it's just better to leave people alone. They're going to get there when they get there.
And I think don't adjust for more flexibility, like more range of movement in a twist or more flexibility in a forward fold. Create awareness in something that's, you know, encouraging strength and stability. Awesome. But I mean, towards mobility, I think is where I feel like don't push anyone further for more flexibility reasons.
Yeah, exactly.
Lauren?
So just on that point, I am Paschimottanasana, I am sometimes, so if we're going to be there for a little while, I'll ask the class and I'll be like, does anyone want to juicy adjust? And you'll see like some people's hands will be like, yes, me. But then again, just like you were saying, Claire, like people shouldn't be like pulling you anywhere in any pose. I'm very much a believer in like a little touch, because just a little touch, people can, you know, just, and that's the awareness. I don't think anyone should be pulling anything ever, unless you know the student very well, you know.
And as you've seen over this course, like load is a big thing. And if you are adding load to a pose, you're changing a lot of dynamics of that pose with your body load on someone else's. Cara?
Yeah, I like what Lauren just said, especially about the pulling. Like we instruct this so much in like forward folds, like don't pull yourself forward by grabbing onto your toes and, you know, doing this pulling action. So teachers don't want students to do this, but then they come behind them and do exactly that. They're putting more load on them. So.
Totally. And where you're putting that load, and I agree, don't push on the spine. You know, if you want to be doing stuff, use stable joints. Don't be pushing and wrenching spine. There's a lot that could, you don't know if someone who spent their entire last 10 years sitting behind a desk with their spine like this, and then you're going to force them into something else. I mean, that's just, you got to be careful asking for trouble. Yeah, it's a big one. It's a really big one. So anything else? I think there's always a time and place. Question always, why are you adjusting? Is it because you like that adjustment yourself? Doesn't mean someone else has the same experience as you. Check if you're adjusting so that it looks pretty, or are you actually teaching them about the pose? Are there other ways that you can get the message across rather than diving in with your hands? Can you try verbal adjustments, maybe a demonstration, maybe a tactile that they feel themselves, or a guidance before you jump in? And are you being aware of what could be going on for them, physically, mentally, emotionally? We don't know. We're yoga teachers. We can't assume that we know that that's good for them. So I think it's good to always just to have a little bit of a mantra on your scope of what you think, and before jumping in, because sometimes it is valid, but not always. Going around and just stroking people, maybe doesn't come across very nicely. Just think about it. Just think about it. Sometimes it's appropriate, sometimes it's not appropriate. And we've just got to be so mindful, especially in the day we're in now. You got to be careful with it for injury and also just appropriate touch. Some people love it, some people don't like it. As you can see in our discussion with everyone, there's very mixed feelings around it. So we got to be aware of everyone's kind of feelings. Okay. All right. Anyone else going to add any last bits? Otherwise, it is 2:00. Claire, if you need to pop off, I'll see you tomorrow. Otherwise, Claire, go for it.
It's just a quickie side note. I mean, I don't know about everybody else, but part of this lockdown has been fantastic in the sense that you're getting to really work on your verbal cueing and sort of verbal adjustments, because you're like, okay, I cannot physically do anything to or for you, so let me figure out how to help you figure this out in your body.
Yes.
So that's been really wicked cool.
I totally agree. I think using your words and finding ways to get those instructions across is such a powerful tool for us as teachers, because we spend most of the time yakking away, don't we? Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. I will see you tomorrow for your final session.
It's good to hear. I've missed you otherwise. Bye.
Nice to see all your faces.
Laura, do we need anything for tomorrow, or do we just turn up at 1?
I think you just turn up at 1. Bring some champagne or wine if you have.
I'm bringing gin.
Bring a gin. Bring a cocktail or some juice, some kombucha, whatever's your thing.
Okay.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.